Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the tools, advice, and strategy you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now, on to this week's show.
Travis, I'm super excited about our guest for this podcast, the interview that we have lined up with Brittany Lewis. Now, for those listening that don't know Brittany Lewis, let me tell you a little bit about her. She's been selling online for over 7 years and is in the 1% of Etsy sellers, having sold over $600,000 on that platform. She's also a consultant with a specialty in print on demand and super passionate about helping other sellers reach the top. Now, we're going to get into all of that and more as we welcome Brittany Lewis to the Print on Demand Cast. Brittany, thanks for taking time to join us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, Brittany, I actually stumbled onto you on Facebook. I don't know how. I can't remember this specific moment I saw your group, but I did join your group, and it's a phenomenal group. It's we were talking a little bit, before we pressed record about how it's one of those positive groups. A lot of Facebook groups can kind of go south, but you've done a really good job and we all know that. You've done a really good job of cultivating kind of a culture of helping others, and we appreciate that. We're always looking for people that are doing that, and so that's one of the reasons we asked you to be on the podcast today. Would you just take a minute and tell our listeners kind of what got you started in print on demand and where where you were and where you're at today?
Yeah, so I have always been super entrepreneurial, and I always wanted to do my own thing, but I wasn't really sure how I was going to get there. I never had any big business ideas that just clicked, and I felt like that's the one. So I worked the 9-to-5 jobs like a lot of people do through college. And in my early 20s, I was working jobs that I absolutely hated. And I stumbled on Etsy, and I tried a few different type of Etsy shops at first, and they didn't work. And so a few years went by, I kept working at jobs I hated, and I started another Etsy shop. This time I just said, I'm going to try something different. I was selling high-waisted jean shorts, and I was wearing them, and I couldn't find them anywhere. I was cutting them and finding them at Goodwill by myself. And a lot of people probably are having the same issue. A lot of girls probably want to wear these too. So I started cutting my own jean shorts, and I quickly discovered that a lot of the people that were buying these items were going to festivals, and they were, can I get this by Coachella, or can I get this by Bonnaroo, or all these rave and festivals? And I thought, wow, I think that this is really resonating with people, especially during summertime going to these festivals, or even in the wintertime going to raves. So I started crafting my shop around rave and festival wear, even though I had never been to one in my life. Still haven't. And I was doing my own handmade thing for a while. It was probably 1 or 2 years. And I discovered print on demand after just countless hours of creating my own stuff. It's a lot of work, purely handmade production on your own.
Sure.
So when I discovered print on demand, it was like the angels sang and the heavens opened. And I was like, how is this possible that someone can do all of this production for me? I can just create designs and they can print and ship it. It was the best thing ever. So it was Printful that I discovered at first. And so I quickly went to work in creating designs that still jived with the vibe and overall, thing that I had created with this shop. And it just kind of took off from there. It was really cool how I was able to just organically continue building my shop through print on demand, something I had never planned on doing. It wasn't like I set out to even create a full-time Etsy business, but within 3 months of having my Etsy shop, even with just making things handmade, I was full-time. So it all happened really fast and really organically and not planned at all. I never had this grand plan of doing all of this. And so I found that is kind of the way a lot of things in my life unfold. I'm not really too much of a goal setter, which is like the kiss of death for most gurus to say. But I really have found that I just am better rolling with the punches, and things unfold for me in really amazing ways when I just trust the process and I allow things to unfold. And that's kind of what I teach now. We'll get more into it, I'm sure, but just experimenting, building out on what's working, experimenting some more, building out on what's working. I do every area of my life that way, and it kind of never fails me. So that's how it all started with print on demand.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you do Etsy primarily? Was that your platform of choice because you were doing handmade stuff originally? Because I know Etsy's kind of like when people think handmade, handcrafted, they go to Etsy. Is that what kind of drew you to Etsy initially? And that's become your primary platform, correct? Are you on any other platforms doing print on demand, or is it just solely Etsy?
I have my own website, and I've tried every other platform, but Etsy was always the thing that stuck and that I was able to be the most successful on. The reason I started on it is just because I was obsessed with it as a buyer, first and foremost. Like I was always shopping on Etsy. And so just like, that's a no-brainer. I want to sell on Etsy. And obviously it's continued to grow at a wild pace every single year. And so it just seemed like a no-brainer. And that's kind of where I started and realized that with as big of an organic traffic stream as they have, I don't need to drive that. I don't need to pay for ads. I don't need to drive traffic. I can just sort of like build my own thing organically. And I was kind of learning to hack the system, the organic algorithm as I went. And the more I found out, the more encouraging it was that I could continue building this out in a very real way.
Nice. So Brittany, I've been, like I said, I've been in your, stalking in your Facebook group, answering a few, throwing out my opinion occasionally, but really I've been just, kind of lurking a little bit. And one of the things you're known for in your Facebook group is trend spotting. And it's something that you really like to capitalize on trends. And so I wondered if you could share some strategies for our audience about how to do that. First of all, what is it? And then how can you capitalize on that trend spotting?
Love it. Favorite question. So this is something I'm all fired up about this today because I actually just did a live workshop on Instagram 2 hours ago, all about abolishing the old map for creating print on demand success. The mental paradigm that most people think is going to get them ultimately to print on demand success needs to be done away with, because it's all about the seller. It's all about driving traffic. 5% of your energy goes into creating a product and 95% of your energy goes into driving traffic to their product. So my way of doing things, the Be A Wolf Biz way, is being customer centric in a way that probably 80% of your energy goes toward trend spotting and creating products for people that are actually looking for it. You, in order to create a bunch of bestsellers, you need to have items that a bunch of people are actively searching for. And that's something that I think a lot of new sellers don't realize is a thing. They just miss it because it's not the old way of doing things. So trend spotting allows you to go to very specific places. I have a specific process I outline in my ebook, Blank to Bank. And, I break it down using specific resources like Pinterest trends and Google trends and Etsy, Pinterest itself and AliExpress. And you go through all these steps in order to glean out as much data and information as you can about products that people are actively buying and actively searching for. And I'm always becoming the expert on what people are looking for, because many people just dive in and they say, okay, I'm going to create this product. Now, how do I get more people to buy it? And I say, no, step back, do away with that and think, how can I create a better product that's going to attract the most people? Because when you're on Etsy, you have this built-in traffic stream that if you have what people want, they're going to find it and they're going to buy it. But you need to first know what people want before you can actually create for those things. And this is something that when it clicks for people, it blows their mind. But before you hear it, it sounds kind of like, duh, that's common sense, but it's just not the way that people do things. So, I've been course creating only for the last 7 months or so. I've been a seller for 7 years, but I really only started creating courses last year. And I've been consulting one-on-one for about 4 years. But when I started doing this, I started realizing how much people were relying on driving traffic. And when things weren't working, they're like, well, how do I get more Instagram followers? And I'm like, you're asking all the wrong questions. This is not going to solve your problem. Driving more traffic to products that nobody wants is not going to do anything for you. It's not going to create the results that you're looking for. So you have to start with the product being the best it can be, and not even just the best it can be the best it can be in terms of demand, as much demand as possible. And if you can put a spin on it, like I teach in Blank to Bank, I talk about combining trends. So you don't just want to sell the type of trends everybody else is selling, or you don't want to sell the same designs as everybody else is selling, right? Because everybody else is selling it. So a way that I found that works really well is to know what's currently trending, to take something else that's currently trending and smash those two things together to create this hyper trending item that people are going to go wild for. And this is something that I've done for a very, very long time, and it works almost every time. You know, it creates stuff that people haven't seen before and that are really unique, which is pretty much the reason why people shop on Etsy, is to find things that you can't find elsewhere.
Do you feel like when you're looking for, you know, a new product to introduce to the market, do you focus more on the design of, you know, the piece of the product that's going, or the actual product itself? Or do you find that those two are kind of, you know, working together to create that perfect, you know, that perfect product?
Yeah, so there's a lot of options with print on demand. Obviously, they grow every single day. I mean, I think Printify just added like a lampshade to their catalog.
Yeah, we actually talked about that a few weeks ago. Yeah,
crazy stuff, and I'm like, we just want tie dye. Why are you giving us lampshades? But that's another thing there. But for, you know, picking what you want to sell out of this catalog, I always say, you know, Be A Wolf Biz, we are trying to build booming businesses, right? We're trying to go full time. We're trying to quit the full time jobs that nobody wants, that we don't like. Yeah. And so my approach is, what can you sell with the highest profit margins? You can make the most money and get out of the job that you want to get out of and have the most freedom possible that you can have. And my opinion on that is, you know, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts. That's always been my highest profit margin items. And if you can focus on that, especially t-shirts, everybody says, no, but the market's too saturated. It's not. There's millions of micro niches of designs that you can create for your t-shirts that lots of people are looking for. I don't believe that the t-shirt market will ever be saturated. So if you're designing like everybody else, creating, you know, happy 4th of July shirts with fireworks, so pizza, I love pizza shirts, of course it's saturated. But there's specific things that you can do to be in these micro niches that are super high demand. So I think it depends is the answer to that question. You know, if you're selling this, if you're selling print on demand as a hobby, you want to make a few extra bucks, or you really happen to love mugs, then sell mugs. But mugs don't particularly have too high of a profit margin, and there's a lot of them on the market. They're not quite as micro niched as t-shirts can be. So I always highly recommend clothing, t-shirts, hoodies, and crew necks, especially just because of their profit margin and the opportunity and how many micro niches there are within that category.
Awesome. That's fantastic advice. I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, because you do always hear the t-shirt market is saturated. But what you're saying is, if you come up with unique designs, it's not going to be saturated because no one else has that design that you're selling in your shop. So it's a way to kind of cut through the noise and get to the intention of the buyer. And I know personally, so my wife has an Etsy shop, and she's done really well for herself. And one of the things that she harps on the most is mockups. And she wants the perfect mockup. And with Etsy, it's very much a lifestyle mockups, because I'll say, what about this? And she's like, that might work for Amazon, but it's not going to work for Etsy. And I'm just continually confused as to why sometimes. But so my question to you is, let's talk about the importance of mockups and what they lend to a listing, and just the aesthetic, especially at Etsy. You can have a shop aesthetic much easier than on an Amazon and a Walmart. So talk to us about the importance of a mock-up when it comes to the listing, because it's one of the things that it's like, we need it, but some people don't understand the importance of it and what it can do for your listing.
Everything, totally. So, okay, so much I want to talk about here. I'm super passionate about photos because they're so powerful. Actually, the stuff I teach in my Etsy master course, like my biggest course that I sell that has everything in it, I go over 5 keys to Etsy shop success, and that's demand, branding, photos, keywords, and all of those things that go into making your listing unique. So listing photos are the visual representation of what you're trying to sell. And the reason why you said what you said about not understanding why it has to be lifestyle, Etsy customers are Pinterest users. They're like one and the same. And Pinterest is a very visually driven platform, as is Etsy. So people that are using Pinterest are very creative. They're wanting what's unique. They're wanting things that other people don't have. They're doing DIY stuff. Those same shoppers are on Etsy looking for things that are just special and something that they can't find anywhere else. So on Etsy, the more that you can create a vibe, in your very first listing photo, that photo that appears in search results amidst, you know, all your other competitors. If you can really nail that very first photo and your design is really good and what people are actually looking for, you have to still have all the other puzzle pieces. If you have a bad design and a great photo, it still doesn't work. But if you can create a feeling, like if you can spark excitement in somebody where before they even click on the item, they're already like excited about it and they already want to add it to their cart, that is when you start creating big momentum. And that is something that I have found is almost always the problem when people are saying like, my shop is not working. I feel like everything I'm doing is right. Brittany, can you please just glance at it really fast, tell me what else I can do better? One of the first things I always say, I mean, I seriously 95% of the time, I'm like, your photos. Almost always. So I say like, if you're using Printful, even if you're using Printify and you're using a mock-up from one of those print-on-demand providers as your first listing photo, knock it off. We've got to change that immediately, only because it has no emotional connection. Emotion is what creates purchases, and connecting with somebody emotionally and having a shop as a whole is even better. Like my Raven Festival wear shop, when I found out the type of things or the type of customers were coming and buying from me the most, I was I'd never been to a rave or a festival, but I knew their style very well. So I was able to give them what they wanted. I was into the same stuff, like the glitter, the unicorns, the purples and holographic textures and all of that. And so once I decided like, ooh, this is the stuff that makes these people excited, I incorporated it in every area of my shop as possible. Like all of the banner, the branding, my photos, everything had these elements of kind of like this magical rave festival wear stuff. And when people saw it, they were obsessed with it. I created, you know, I had an Instagram account and the whole feed was just like purple filters and glitter and all of this sort of fun stuff that got people that were my ideal customer excited to be there, excited to shop there. And I think if you can create that feeling for your customer, it's in the bag and you've got it figured out. But a lot of people struggle with listing photos because they don't understand the underlying feeling behind a trend and like why people are searching for these trends. And also, I just think people like to see what that product will look like in its best form. So like get a cute model, merchandise it, you know, all brands do this, put some jewelry with it, make it look cute. Like we're not an exception because we're selling online. We have to make these products look as enticing as possible. And especially the women and men that are shopping on Etsy, they want to see it done to the nines. They want to see how this product will look on the most stylized version of a model as possible.
Yeah. When I worked in retail for a while, I worked at the Buckle for probably a year or so. And when it came to the window shopping, that was the whole goal was, it's a Hurley shirt, but we're going to put the Hurley shirt with the cool accessory and the right hat and the right jeans. And it's going to look like peak performance ready. So when that person walks by the window, they're going to want to come in and get that shirt, perhaps the whole ensemble, who knows? But I think that's kind of what I hear you saying is that's the equivalent of window shopping is those listing photos. That's the person walking by your store in the mall and catching their attention and getting them to come into your store is the end goal of the mock-ups.
Correct. Yes. And that is the exact example. I think I was talking to people in my elite membership yesterday about this exactly. And I use that metaphor. I said, when you're trend spotting, think of it like when people are walking through the mall, they're looking in the windows of these brands. They don't have just t-shirts hung up on the wall. Like they know that's not going to sell their shirts. They have them merchandised in a specific way that's directed at their target market. And online is no different. You have to know your customer and you have to understand the trend, because you could have one shop with multiple trends in it and each photo should speak to the person interested in that specific trend. So there's a lot to know, of course, but that's why I preach constantly trend research and understanding your customer and understanding trends and really becoming the expert yourself, because without that, you're going to keep shooting and missing. And it's really frustrating. You feel like you're doing so much work, but not getting any results.
Yeah, I love the mall analogy, because you walk through the mall and there's all these different stores, and each one of them, you might walk by 5 different, clothing stores, and the one that draws you in is the one, that's part of, there's all different types of people that they're trying to target with these different stores. And that's kind of what the listing pictures do. I want to ask you kind of an interesting question or a crazy question. And I have a feeling that you kind of answered it when you were talking about knowing your customer. But if you had to start all over, and this hopefully will help some of our newer, some of our listeners that maybe haven't taken the leap into print on demand yet, and you lost all your contacts, you didn't know, well, I guess you can't, what Printify is and you know what Printful is, but
right.
You lost all of your business contacts. You don't have any designs, you don't have any mock-up, anything, and you have to start from square one. What are you going to be doing in your first day, your first week, your first month? What's your strategy?
Amazing. So yeah, you guys are hitting on all the things I've been talking about recently. Literally in that live I did a couple hours ago, I said, if I had to open a shop tomorrow, I know that I could make it full time in 2-3 months, maybe even a month.
Wow.
Between 1 and 3 months, I'm sure that I can, because I have a specific map that I have proven over and over again. As many times as I've taught, thousands of sellers at this point, it always works when you commit to it. So I think the first thing I would do, and the first thing I encourage new sellers to do, is get off your butt and open a shop. Don't deliberate. Don't think about what am I going to sell? What's my shop going to look like? How many listings do I need? I need to create all my designs first. No, just open a shop, throw your designs up. It's a very messy process in the beginning, and it should be, because you're experimenting. You have to test until you know what works. Sellers think that they make the assumption that they know what's going to work, right? And I was one of them. When I listed my high-waisted shorts, I was like, it's going to be a high-waisted short shop. I love it. And that probably would have worked to some degree. But if I wouldn't have within a few months been like, wait a minute, this festival thing, I was paying attention. If I hadn't been paying attention to my customers, then I wouldn't have known that. And if I had refused to build out that way, if I had been like, no, that's a possibility, but I'm a high-waisted short shop, I'm not going to expand to all the festival wear stuff, I would have missed out on so much stuff. And I see this all day, every day. People are like, no, I want to be I want to have my Bible verse shirts, or I want to have my so-and-so. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do a particular thing, but if we're talking building a full-time business, you have to be so incredibly flexible. So I the first and foremost thing I would do is open my shop and let things get really messy and test away. And I have a very good intuition at this point. That's why I am always talking about trend spotting, and I have this trend spotting membership, is because I feel like when I see something, I can intuitively know whether or not it's going to explode in the next year or so, or in the next month, whatever. So I think I would use that. I'd go through the blank to bake process, as I always do. It's a continual thing. It's not something that you do once and then you're like, okay, I did it. It's a never-ending cycle of learning what's trending now. So in the shop, do my research, collect all my data, and start designing, start listing things, and just take action. That's really what it takes.
So I want to ask one more question. You've been talking a lot about trends, and it just hit me. I'm just curious, do you ever go after evergreen niches, or are you more just focused on the trends and hopefully some of those trends become evergreen for you, or do you kind of do both and?
So my way of doing things has really, in my own shop, has been trending stuff. And a lot of that turns evergreen, to be honest. Trends don't come and go as fast as a lot of people think they do. I just had somebody ask me today, how do I know, how soon should I delete a listing after a trend falls off? And I'm like, where is the barometer for when a trend falls off? That doesn't have there's no day of tie-dye's done now, or nothing like that. So instead of worrying so much about when a trend falls off, just let things go and keep creating new trends. If something goes evergreen, fabulous. If something falls off, fine. You spend 20 cents renewing a listing, you don't lose anything. It doesn't matter. So I'm always about looking forward and creating what's in demand now. But a lot of things are evergreen. I had a shop that had a lot of hiking stuff in it, and I kind of would incorporate trendy stuff into hiking things. And those are sold for 5 years. So it's really a matter of just, integrating things as you see them and going with your gut after you have experimented and learned enough to have cultivated an accurate gut feeling. But until then, I think when you're first starting out, going for the trending things is important, because if you go after the evergreen things, I think a lot of times people do that and they chase holidays. So they create Valentine's shirts and and
Sure.
shamrock teas. And I'm like, good luck with that against a million competitors, right?
Right,
So in
right.
blank, I say, like, I am not a proponent of holiday design creation at all, especially for new sellers. You have no momentum built on the Etsy platform. Just do not do it unless you're combining it with a current trend somehow to make it really in demand. So like
Right.
for Christmas, if you're combining it, we talk a lot about cottagecore as a trend in my group lately. And I said, if you're going to design for Christmas, please do not create "Let's Get Lit" shirts or, Merry Christmas, the Christmas trees, because that's what everyone is doing. And like, it makes no sense to try to compete against all those people with these designs that everybody has. So instead, understand cottagecore, because it's kind of one of those things that is like really cozy and homey and organic, and it's blown up within the last year. And then combine it with a Christmas quote or something Christmassy, and that's okay. But that takes a lot of knowledge, so it's not something that I highly recommend for new sellers either. I recommend just sticking with the basics and don't try to compete in mega saturated markets.
Right.
Go for the smaller areas where you have more chance of reaching more people through really great
Sure.
design.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. I like, what you said, probably a question ago, you were talking about how you thought you were going to be a high-waisted shorts shop, and that was going to be the sum total of what you offered, but you allowed yourself to grow according to what the demand was, what the trend was. And we talk a lot about on the show about, one, take action, just do it, put stuff out there, but also, focus on something specific that you want to be good at. But what I hear you saying, what I like is don't pigeonhole yourself. Like, you can start somewhere, but if you see things starting to move in a different direction, don't pigeonhole yourself as far as what you're going to offer, the designs that you're going to make. Don't put yourself in that scenario, because if you would have done that, it would have been a huge failure. And I know, here we started doing home decor. We print on wood signs, and we print on pillow covers. We print on tea towels. At my wife's behest, it was her idea for her Etsy shop. And I was very much like, yeah, but we print shirts and sweaters, and hoodies. Like, we're a shirt print shop. What are we doing with what sign? I don't want to be a decor shop. You nuts?
Right.
So, but had we gone with that line of thinking, we would have pigeonholed ourselves and lost out on a huge market that we now move a lot of product in. So, if we wouldn't have allowed ourselves to evolve, it would have been a failure. And so, I want to ask you again, on the note of failures in business. What is a particular failure that something happened that you felt like was a huge failure in your business, in your journey? Again, in the show, we talk a lot about how the people on the screen, the people on Instagram with their carefully curated moments of perfection, all that kind of stuff. We're all human. We've all gone through mistakes. We've all made huge mistakes and blunders, no matter what it is, business or otherwise. So hopefully this will also offer some encouragement for that person just starting out, that person who feels like, man, I made a mistake, and is there recovery from it? What's an example of that in your POD, in your entrepreneur journey, really?
Yeah, I love this question, because everybody is always just like, Brittany, you're always going, and you're like, a lot of things that you do work, and it's not fair. I feel like I'm trying, and it's
Sure.
yeah, except for the fact that you don't see the 20 million things I tried that didn't work, or the thousands of mistakes that I've made. I think that I've been successful largely because I'm just willing to try literally everything and see what sticks and then go for it. I think it's interesting as well. I just want to mention, before I answer that question directly, I have built Be A Wolf Biz, my consulting business, in the exact same way I built my Etsy shop years ago. And I started out as like an Etsy consultant. I was like, I just want to help Etsy shop sellers learn how to build their Etsy business. And then I started creating YouTube videos around it. And I saw all these print on demand people in the comments, and they're like, well, teach us how do I sell this and sell this? And I realized, like, oh, where the real niche is that's going to be my best option is focusing on print on demand. So I went into it just trying to teach Etsy sellers. And then I was like, okay, I see this. It's just like I went into it trying to sell high-waisted shorts. When you see something that presents an opportunity that's going to lead you in a different direction, you can't have ego about that. If you let your ego get in the way, your actual journey is going to be like cut in half, if not stunted altogether. So I tell people all the time, just like stop having an ego and assuming that you know best, because you don't know best. When you know better, you can do better. But until you know better, you don't know anything. Right. And just like keep yourself open to all the possibilities. So I think that's a really, really great point. And I just wanted to share that very quickly. But in terms of blunders, I have so many. I cannot even begin to tell you how many times I have thought like, this is the end of the road. This is just like my quitting time. This is when I waved the white flag and I'm out, but I didn't. I just kept going through all of them. I want to tell you two very quickly because they're my two favorite. They're the worst of the worst. My first one was when I was selling high-waisted shorts. This is a very embarrassing story. I went to a local retail shop. Again, this was 7 years ago. I probably would not go about this the same way now, but I did the best I knew how then. I went to a local retail shop and I was like, hey, would you like to carry these high-waisted shorts? They're really cool. It was like kind of a trendy thrift shop kind of place. And I didn't realize that I was just going to go all in on Etsy. So I was trying different things. And I asked them if they wanted to carry these shorts. And they were like, yes, sure, we'd love to. And it was a really booming place. So I was beyond excited. It was like my first real venture. And so I did all of these shorts. And at the time they were galaxy print shorts. So I was actually hand painting like 3 different colors of paint and creating a galaxy pattern by hand. Wow. And so I created like 10 of these shorts. And it took me hours, and I had ran to the store, and I had to be at the shop that I was bringing them to in like an hour or two. And I had ran to the grocery store really fast. When I came home, this was at the time I was living with my parents. I was having a mid-20s crisis at the time when I started my Etsy shop. And so I was living with my parents, and I ran home really fast trying to get everything together. And I had this box of high-waisted shorts that were waiting to be taken to the store. And I went to grab them, and I got like a big whiff of cat urine smell. And I thought, no! Is that my cat got into this box of high-waisted shorts, right? And looking back, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like the whole deal wasn't that major. It was just like a couple of shorts I was selling at this place. But to me at the time, it was everything.
It was everything, yeah.
Deal ever. And so I lifted one of the shorts and I looked at it and I kind of got closer and I was like, yeah, that's what I thought it was. So my cat had peed all over 10 to 15 pairs of these high-waisted shorts that I had to have to the shop in 1 hour. So I threw them in the wash. And I went as quickly as I could. I dumped about half of a bottle of detergent into the wash. I threw them into the dryer. I did a quick sniff test as soon as they were out, and then I was on my way to this thrift store, and I actually ended up still giving them these high-waisted shorts that my cat had peed on prior. So like I said, that is not a story I'm proud of, but I had to do what I felt like I had to do in that moment. And they did not smell like cat pee by some crazy outcome. They actually didn't end up, it's so hard to get that smell out of anything, but they really didn't. And the shop had no problems and we actually sold all of them. So it was a happy ending. But it was a very tragic experience and I wanted to literally crawl in a hole and die. But the second one, I'll go very fast because I know these are long. That last one's long, but the second one happened to me actually last year. It was very recent. I created these hoodies through Printify. It was at the beginning of the pandemic, so everything was all crazy. Printify went nuts at the beginning of the pandemic, and so I had created these hoodies. And followers of mine have heard this story before because I love to tell it. It was tragic. I had created hoodies with a very small design that went right underneath the neck. And it was just like a center design that was very high up and very small. It was like a very delicate type of design. And Printify it was very confusing. One of their providers, the Dream Junction, had changed their guidelines for where the design could be placed within the guidelines. Because, you know, when you go to place any print on demand design, you have to have it within this square on whatever garment you're placing it on. So the Dream Junction, one of the providers that I was using, brought their guidelines down. And so my design that was sitting along the top got cut in half. They had sent out an email telling us that the guidelines changed, but it was like the tiniest line of text at the very bottom of one email. And so I, of course, didn't see it. It was crazy. I don't read every single line of every single email that Printify sends me, and there was no other indication of this anywhere else.
Wow.
So I didn't realize what was happening. And this just happens to be one of my best-selling products of all time. And during the pandemic, this was when everybody started shopping. It was the big quarantine boom. And so I had just hundreds of sales of these hoodies, and I'd say probably 100 went out with the design cut completely in half. So at that point, I started receiving the messages. I started crying. Things got very, very emotional and very trying. And it was one of those times where I just wanted to close my Etsy shop altogether and say I quit. Because, you know, with bad reviews, with shipping times, with the pandemic just hitting anyways, I was a mess as it was. Everyone was trying to get everything in order. So then I had all these messages and these bad reviews being left before I could even reply to messages. I had to refund everybody that wrote me because I contacted Printify and I said, listen, I didn't know. You guys didn't do a good enough job of telling sellers that these guidelines moved. And they were like, well, we're actually not going to replace any of them because it was your responsibility to So it was all completely my responsibility. And Printify just said, gosh, we told you in the email. I was like, you told me in one sentence at the bottom of the email. So yeah, I lost a lot of money and a lot of tears, as I said. But, you know, as time went on, I started getting fewer and fewer of those messages, and things continued on. Life went on, sales went on. It was fine. I got 1 or 2 bad reviews from it. Everybody else was somewhat understanding. But that was definitely an example of a time where I wanted to throw in the towel. And I think people think that doesn't happen to people like me or like us that have high level sales. It happens literally all the time. There's nothing you can do to stop stuff like that from happening. All you can do is be really, really, really good at responding to those problems mentally. Because if you're not good at responding to them mentally, if you don't keep your emotions in check and just say like, what's the solution? You know, we can harp on about it. We can be mad at Printify. We can spend all this time being upset, or we can just solve it as it comes. Move on. And I think that I have become a really tough cookie in that respect, because I know at this point not many things can stop me, including, you know, hundreds of items going out with a design totally cut in half and cat pee shorts either. Nothing can stop me.
I think it's one of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes is, success is moving from failure to failure without losing determination.
So good.
And that's what I think about all the time. You know, when we talk to entrepreneurs like yourself, or we share stories, you know, or man, this went bad. We're, you know, back in our Amazon days, making bad buys on wholesale deals. And it's just like, it's just part of the game, you know? And I think it's important too, for those listening. You know, we talk about a lot. Don't compare your chapter 1 with Brittany's chapter 10 and look at what Brittany's doing and feel discouraged. The point of that question was to say, we've all started from somewhere. We've all made those mistakes, and don't compare yourself, because a comparison is the thief of joy. You'll lose all motivation if all you're doing is comparing your chapters to one another when you don't know the other 9 chapters it took Brittany to get to where she is. So be encouraged that though the journey might be, you know, arduous at times, it is doable, and we're all on the same journey together, and we want to see each other succeed.
Absolutely. And I wish that people could see my chapter 1 so they can compare it to their chapter 1.
Sure.
I wish that was the thing, but unfortunately you can't really film every moment. But I try to be as transparent as possible about that stuff, because I'm like, if you expect to be where I am in a day or even a month or a year, it's just not going to happen. But you're where I am at the same point in time. So you can get there eventually. But the whole game is patience and being able to persevere. Yeah,
absolutely.
Totally. Well, Brittany, thanks for sharing those moments. I mean, we've all got them, but it's always it's refreshing to hear that we're all human, and we're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen that are out of our control, and we're going to have to adapt. And so, appreciate you being transparent and honest with those. Those are some great stories. So moving on. So if you could look into the future, get your crystal ball out for us for a minute, and we'd love to hear what your idea for the future of print on demand is. We love to ask our interviewees this question because everybody's kind of got a different slant, and so we'd love to hear what you think, is the future of print on demand.
Absolutely. Yeah. I tell my followers this a lot when they complain about Printify or Printful not having certain things. I'm like, you guys, this is literally like the prelude to print on demand. We are just getting started. There is never we are in a stage of where this thing is in its complete and total infancy. I think it's in pre-infancy, and the way that it exploded in to 2020 with the pandemic just accelerated where it was already headed. And so I think what we're working with now is it's just going to be a sad comparison to what it will be in a year or even in 2 years. I can't imagine. I think, it's going to expand into such greater things in terms of what they're offering. We have a lot of options now, but they're not always the best options. And I think we're going to get better options. We're going to get cheaper prices. We're going to get more competition in terms of providers. So we have more choices. I think people are just catching wind of print on demand. It's really a brand new thing. And everybody that's discouraged now thinking that this is always going to be the way it is, I truly don't believe that. And I think that, it's going to expand into something that more and more people are going to hop onto. I mean, it's such a cool thing. The way that it's set up just allows people to begin a business from scratch with little to no investment, right? You don't need to have even a couple $100 to start. You could start with almost nothing because it is on demand. It's order to order. And so I think the more people start realizing this is a real opportunity, and the more places we have to sell, the more things we have to actually sell in terms of products, the bigger it's going to get. So I'm looking forward to that time and to things being easier as well. I think with the interface right now, and the, kind of the behind the scenes of Printify and Printful, it's kind of messy and there's a lot of glitches. There's a lot of stock issues. I don't see those things being a problem at all in the next 5 years. I think they're going to find a way to become so damn efficient, and there's going to be such a boom in what's able to be sold that it's just going to be one opportunity that many people just can't even pass up, because it's going to be really, really great. And I'm looking forward to that. And I think the people that are sticking with it now in its pre-infancy, as I said, are going to be really happy with the direction, because I think it's going to only get easier and easier. The same thing happened with Etsy. When I started on Etsy, the back end of it, the seller area, was really hard to navigate. The features were non-existent back in 2014. And now it's developed into such an easy to use thing that has all the features in one area. And I see the same thing happening with print on demand. I think when something is this big of an opportunity, it just continues to grow, get easier to use, get more accessible, and more robust in terms of the catalog of products that they offer.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great insight. And thanks for offering your predictions, and we'll hold you to it. And in 5 years, we will reference this and we'll see if you're right or wrong, the accuracy of it. No, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on the show. And as we wind down here, I just wanted to ask you, you've got a couple things that you're offering the community, other than this awesome insight and advice that you've offered on this episode. So thank you again for that. But there's a couple of things that you're offering: design boot camp and elite membership. So could you tell us a little bit about those offerings and where people can find them and sign up and go from there?
Yeah. So the Blank to Bank ebook is always where I tell people to start, because that's the trend spotting process. I also have a course for that. The book is like $9.95. It's super cheap. The course is $39. So you can buy the course and get the book in it for $39. And you can actually watch me go through the process myself, just like screen sharing. So that really helps people a lot. But after Blank to Bank, everyone's like, where do I go next? And I always say my design bootcamp bundle I have it on sale right now. It was a Black Friday deal that I ended up leaving on sale like forever, but I'm going to take it down very soon. It's a very limited offer for $297. You get my design boot camp, which is basically walks you through A to Z how to create best-selling print-on-demand designs without being a graphic designer. No graphic design experience needed, the way that I've done it for the last 7 years. It has my Etsy accelerator in it, which is like the basics of SEO and photos and all that sort of good stuff. It has all the blank to bank stuff in it. It has a listing photos masterclass. So everything that people need to begin is in this bundle. So that's always where I point people. The next thing to do is the design bootcamp bundle. And then the elite membership is what I referenced earlier, is strictly like a trend spotting membership. I weekly go through or release a new trend spotting video where I'm looking for new trends, walking you through how I do it, walking you through what I see, all the observations. And, you know, sometimes I even talk about how to incorporate it into specific designs, how the trend combine and all that sort of stuff. Then we have bi-weekly group coaching calls in that membership. And I have 2 designated Instagram accounts exclusive to only members. I have an Instagram and a Pinterest that I curate myself with really trendy content, so people can daily check in and see new stuff. So that's really exciting. And the elite membership is something I started only about 4 or 5 months ago. And it is definitely a Be A Wolf Biz favorite. I think everybody likes the membership the most because it's really interactive and you can get a whole lot of good information for a very low price each month.
Awesome. And tell everyone where they can find you on social, Instagram, Facebook, and your website. And we'll be sure to put all of these links in the show notes as well, so the listeners can just access them right from their whatever podcast platform they're listening from. So tell us where to find you.
Yeah, so my website is just beawolfbiz.com. I'm Be A Wolf Biz on Instagram, the Be A Wolf Biz Facebook group, and you can find me on YouTube, Be A Wolf Biz as well. It's all the same handle across all social media. I really focus on Instagram and my Facebook group the most.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much. I know you're busy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. I know that this is going to be very beneficial for our listeners and those starting out. So thank you for taking the time, and hopefully we'll do this again and follow up and see what else you've developed and the progress that you've made on your Etsy shops even from this point. So thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was really, really fun.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next week.